All right, Mark, we are
Hey,
live. Greetings, Brutal Planet.
hey, what's going on, man?
How you been, brother?
Very good, very good.
We are live today with Mr. Mark Zavon of Kill Devil Hill.
Yeah.
Sir, so let's start by talk a little bit about because you guys have kind of an interesting history. Let's talk about the history of the band. Vinny Appice was in the band. Rex from Pantera was in the band. Talk about kind of like the formation of the band and the trajectory to where you are today.
Well, it first started basically when I met, we had a common friend, Vinny Appice and I, and he was looking for a guitar player because he had some songs that he had recorded basically for download purposes. So basically what the deal was is you could have Vinny play on your demos. You know, you buy the package, he's playing through a verse, he's playing through a chorus, you know, he had all these drum tracks he recorded, but he wanted to make songs out of it. He's like, these could be good songs. So at the time he had Jimmy Bain, you know, playing bass and he lived right down the street from me. So I was like, sure, I'll come over. And so I went over there. We recorded, I don't know, like 7 songs or so. He's like, you know, a singer? I was like, oh yeah, I know this guy. We had just jammed in this other project that sort of fell apart. A lot of that stuff happens in LA where you put a project together and then it falls apart before it even sees the light of day. But I still had the dude's number. It was Dewey, our singer, and he came over. We started jamming and it was really cool for a minute until Vinny kind of got tired of Jimmy kind of, I don't know. They had a complicated relationship, a lot longer than ours. So anyway, Vinny's like, he's out of the band. I'm like, Dewey and I were both like, okay, whatever you say. And so we were looking for a bass player for a while, auditioned a few people, and then he called me one day and he said, I got the guy. And I'm like, oh, okay, who is it? And he's like, Rex Brown. Of course, I'm a huge Pantera fan. So I was like, what? You're kidding, right? He's like, no, I know Rex. We jammed together, been on tour together and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. So we put all that together, started playing together. That was about 2010, I guess it was. And did a couple of records, bunch of tours, and it was a lot of fun, man. We really had a good time. And, you know, that's basically what we did with that lineup. And now, of course, we've gone through some changes, and now we've got Matt Snell from the original Five Finger Death Punch bass player playing bass with us.
Awesome.
And he brings a lot to the table, that guy. I mean, he's not just a monster on bass, but he's really good at the whole business side of things. So that really helps out, you know, having somebody on the team that's good at that sort of thing as well. And then Johnny Kelly from Typo Negative on drums, great drummer, and kind of, you know, real similar stylistically to what Vinny was doing. You know what I mean? A real guy, kind of back of the pocket Sabbath feel. You know, Johnny's a big Sabbath fan, so that goes a long way to, you know, creating a similar vibe. You know, and on the new record, a lot of that stuff has that feel. You know, a really good feel.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny's kind of a master at that. So really looking forward to sharing that with people coming up next month.
Yeah, Johnny is the man. I love the Typo Negative drum sound. I've always it's just a bit. He's always had such a huge sound.
Definitely. Yeah, he's really good at that. In fact, he just built himself a studio in his backyard. So he's been kind of learning how to record, and the stuff that he's got coming out now sounds really good. So he's got a recording rig back there, and he can basically, you know, make himself some coffee and walk out to his studio and do some tracking. So I'm
That's how you
super
do
happy
it.
for him. I know he's wanted that for a long time.
Yeah, and that guy he plays with quite a few different bands too. Like he's playing with I know Kenny's other band I Am, and then doesn't he play still with like Danzig or Prong or some of those bands?
I don't think he plays with Prong, but he is with Quiet Riot right now as
Right. That's it.
well. And yeah, the I Am thing. And he's had a few other bands, Silver Tomb, I think, with Kenny as well. And there's been a handful of other things that he's had going on. I mean, he definitely stays busy, but when you're a really talented drummer like that, it's not hard to find gigs. People usually find you, I think. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, you know, sometimes the scheduling's an issue, but we work around it because hell, Johnny's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk about a little bit more about your history, man. Like what like your history in the industry and what you were doing before you formed this project.
Well, let's see. I played in an instrumental funk rock fusion band back in the 90s, band called JRZ System. We did a couple of records, and then I moved out to LA. I was playing with Stephen Pearcy from Rat at the time.
Wow.
Did that for a while, I think like 3 years or something, did a couple of CDs with him and a bunch of tours and stuff like that, which was a lot of fun. I was a huge Rat fan when I was a kid. You know, Warren
Me
DeMartini was
too.
one of my
Me
favorite
too.
guitar player. It still is, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a real thrill to get to play those songs with the original guy. And then later on, actually, when John Corabi was playing rhythm guitar for Rat, they called me up to fill in a couple of festival dates. So I got to play with Warren actually on stage as well, in his
Nice.
incarnation. But yeah, anyway, so that was a thrill for me doing that stuff. And then I got hired to play in Wasp, but that never actually came to fruition. I rehearsed with the band for a few weeks, I think it was, but then long story short, they went with another guy, and yeah, I found out that I was sick, so I wound up having to go into treatment for what wound up being Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I spent
Oh
like a
God.
couple of years dealing with that. Yeah, it was kind of messed up, but I honestly, it was a strange blessing in disguise losing that gig, because when I was in rehearsal, I knew I wasn't firing on all cylinders. I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but I was like, this is not, I can play this stuff better than this. I don't know what's going on. But afterwards, when I went and saw the doctor, it kind of became clear. And that tour was like a 3-month tour. So it was stage 2. If I'd have done that tour, I probably would have been at least stage 3 when I got back, if not stage 4. That's a lot harder to come back from. So
Yeah.
losing that gig may have saved my life. I told that to Blackie once. I was like, you saved my life. You know that? We still stay in touch though, Blackie and I. He's a really good guy. I love that dude.
Yeah, they have a Wasp has a really interesting trajectory, because I was just watching this MTV like classic footage of when back in the 80s, when there was the push for the PMRC, and like Dee Snider and Frank Zappa and John Denver were like in Congress giving testimony, and they literally held up "Fuck Like a Beast" as like an
Right?
example of like the terrible, terrible music that your kids are listening to. And now Blackie's like a Christian and stuff. Like he's totally, I guess.
Yeah, he is. And, but it's interesting because, like people, there's been like an outcry for Fuck Like a Beast, like literally the fans have wanted to hear it for so long.
Yeah.
Just on this last tour, they started playing it again after years and years of not playing it. So, and I caught them when they played at the Wiltern, this last tour they did with Armored Saint. And it was so great to see them play that song, because it just makes you feel like a kid again. I was a big Wasp fan too when I was a kid. So it means something. Those songs, they
Totally.
kind of resonate with the I don't know, the younger you or whatever.
Well, the whole like the joy of seeing most of these bands live is to hear the songs that you loved when they were in their prime, right?
Right, exactly, totally. That's the thrill of it for sure.
We had this conversation, and honestly, I'd like to get your input on this, but we've been talking a lot about music from like the 2000s on is just it's a different animal than maybe it was from like the 50s through the like 90s, and where there were so many classic records that came out. And one of the things we were talking about is the kind of like linearization of music through Pro Tools and digital recording. And
Yeah,
one guy was saying that was like the main fat guy in the comments basically, but was he pointed to that as the differentiator, as what caused this change in music. And I kind of agree with it to some degree. But what we were talking about earlier with those songs is like those classic songs are still great. Like even though kind of like the hair bands and stuff went out in the 80s, I go back to like Skid Row and Motley Crue and even Def Leppard. Like those records are still great records. The songwriting and everything and the quality
absolutely.
of the albums is great.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, like High and Dry. I mean, like I still listen to that record. I grew up on it. I love those riffs. Some great guitar playing, and they're best known for, the more Hysteria style stuff that they did later on. But that early stuff, man, that is some really serious guitar playing. It's really great stuff. And, things have changed, and I think it's true that Pro Tools and technology have had a lot to do with that. I think Dave Grohl, I don't know if it was in Sound City, he mentioned something about the reality of recording on a 2-inch tape machine was that you had to commit to 24 tracks. You had to do it in 24 tracks. Now with Pro Tools, you can do 124 tracks and it will be exactly the same. It doesn't matter. It's unlimited. So you don't have to commit. You can just do as many as you want, layer them for as long as you want, but there's no kind of boiling it down to the absolute pure song, the pure recording of that song. And that I think is definitely something that's been kind of lost. I mean, there are bands that still do it. A buddy of mine plays in Slash's band, and he was telling me, we were out on tour doing another project, and he was saying, yeah, we just rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and went in and cut the whole thing basically live. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. So Beatles-esque to do that, just go in and play it until you get it right and be that well rehearsed, because nowadays, unfortunately, that's not as common. A lot of guys are, well, I'll do the tracks here, I'll do the tracks there. You do yours at your studio, I'll do mine at my studio. And logistically, a lot of times that makes the most sense. You've got to have a lot of money to fly everybody in from wherever they live, put them up for 3 weeks or however long it takes to rehearse that stuff up, pay for the recording studio, pay for the rehearsal studio. That costs a lot of money. And, unfortunately, in today's world, you can't make money off the music anymore because of streaming services and that sort of thing. So, your music basically becomes a billboard for your band so that you can get people to come to your live shows and purchase merchandise, and that's, I don't know, man, I really didn't get in the business to be a t-shirt salesman, but I'm not going to fight it now that we're here because I love playing music. So, if that's what it is, fine. I roll with the changes. I can do that, and that's what we do. But yeah, there was a charm, there definitely was a charm about, and not just about the recording process, but also about the way things were done with record labels. Record labels really were the gatekeepers of what you would hear on the radio and what you wouldn't. So you had to really be at the top of your game to get a record deal back then. Nowadays, there's so many boutique labels and you can put stuff out on YouTube. You can just have your own YouTube channel just by having a computer. So there's so much more competition in the market than there used to be. And that's another thing that sort of dilutes the pure nature of what used to be,
Yeah, totally. It's changed on so many levels. And I think it's like there's pluses and minuses, right? Like you were saying, it opens things up in a lot of ways and makes it less likely that you have to commit, but it also creates this environment where there's so many people in the mix now doing music because anyone can, make a song and put it on streaming or.
Exactly. And there's no real way to differentiate that, in today's market. I mean, there are, it's nuanced, but I mean, certainly, if you've got more money, you can promote your product better, and that doesn't necessarily make your product better. So, it's kind of a catch-22, right?
Yeah. The upside, I think, is it's like bands, lots of great bands that might not have otherwise been able to put music out but now it's kind of like you have to wade through this like ocean of stuff to find the gems,
Yes, that's the issue, really, because they're out there. Those gems are out there still.
Totally.
There's fresh new talent. I mean, it's just unbelievable the stuff that comes out, like younger guys that are just mowing it down. I mean, Wolfgang Van Halen, oh my God.
Yeah.
That guy's on fire, man. He can play everything better than everybody. It's insane. But, luckily he had the resources, and the kind of the machine in place for people to not overlook that talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that.
So
exactly right.
He's got access that other people don't. I like the term you used earlier too, gatekeepers, because that's exactly what it used to be like, where it's like, if you didn't have that access to the radio waves or the, and you're not going anywhere as a musician.
That's right. Exactly. And so everybody was lining up to get record deals. And, I mean, back in the day, I mean, it's before I wound up out here in Los Angeles, but the competition on the Strip was just fierce, man. I know people that were here then, and, all the stapling of flyers and people, in direct competition, for not just record deals, but gigs, because all the shows that you could get out here, basically they were showcases because all the people in the industry were here. So, it was pretty stiff competition, to say the least.
Where are you at in LA?
Woodland Hills, up in the valley.
Oh, you're not far from me. I'm in Calabasas.
Oh, cool.
I'm just
yeah, you're right down the street, dude.
Liberty Canyon, basically, in the condos.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm just south of Ventura on basically Topanga, just south of,
awesome,
just a block off Topanga right there.
Yeah, I lived in the valley for a long time. No, I love LA for a lot of reasons. But there's so much music here. I played in a band in the early 2000s, and to your point about record labels, it's like I had some friends in a band called Depswa, and they got signed to Geffen. And I thought, oh wow, these guys are going to be huge. You know, they did a deal with, did an album with Howard Benson, who was like a huge at the time. He's still pretty huge. And then they went on Ozfest, and their album just kind of, I think that the people that marketed them didn't know what they were doing very much, like didn't do it right. And they didn't they kept tried to mold them into something that they weren't. And then they got stuck in the label deal and ended up having to break up and like start under another name, you know, because they were locked into that deal under the name that they had been using.
Right. Yeah, that's frustrating, man. Yeah, there's so many things that can happen that are just so far out of your control. I remember back in 91, I had appeared in Guitar Player magazine, had a spotlight column with Mike Varney that he used to run. And I appeared in that. And then he had called me up. I was teaching lessons in Omaha, Nebraska. And he called me up. He's like, I got this band in Minneapolis I'm going to sign. Do you want to join this band? And I was like, all right, yeah. So I went up and auditioned, got the audition, went out, made a record with those guys out at that Prairie Sun studio in Novato, or Cotati, actually, more accurately, that he did all the, you know, shrapnel stuff at the time, and did the record. Everything was looking good. The guy that produced our record, Mark Hafer, was the guitar player for a band called Street Talk. And Varney had just recorded their record and got them signed to Warner Brothers. And they were just finishing up with our record so they could move down to LA. They had a house in Canyon Country, I think it was. They were getting ready to go on tour. And we were just finishing up our record. And Varney was pretty, you know, he seemed confident that he could sell it, you know, to some major label, which is basically what he was doing at the time. And right then, it was 91, like I said, I remember hearing Smells Like Teen Spirit on the radio. And I was like, oh, this is a pretty rocking track, you know, and didn't have any idea at the time that basically it was the death knell for everything that they were doing, that Street Talk was doing, that we were doing. All that stuff was about to go out the window. And we wound up basically just packing it in. You know, we did that whole record, a band called Scream Parade for Minneapolis. And it never saw the light of day. Still hasn't seen the light of day. Somebody was trying to put it out, and I don't know, they were hitting some roadblocks, but hitting me up for photos and stuff from that era. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. That band Street Talk was fantastic. They were so good, you know, and you know, even Scream Parade was really good bands, really strong, you know, act. And you know, but you know, the powers that be decide what happens, you know. I mean, it's kind of a force majeure, you know, where it just kind of, you know, nothing you can do about it. You just got to roll with the changes.
Well, it's a cool time for that reason too, because I feel like I talked to Janet Gardner from Vixen a couple months ago and Ken Mary from Fifth Angel, and they said almost the exact same thing. They were like, Janet was like, you know, we put our first album. By the time we put our second album, grunge had kind of come in, and they were just like, no one gave a shit. We were done. And same with Ken. But now it's like they've got Fifth Angel back together and they're touring, and it's like, yeah, like 80s metal isn't like the top trending thing, but because of the way that the world works now, they can find their audience pretty easily and go out and tour and all that stuff. So
exactly, yeah, it's a niche market now, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's got life, and well, it obviously, you know, so it's really cool. In fact, Vixen just played at this casino that I do some stuff at on the weekends, and I got to hang out with those guys for a minute. You know, a buddy of mine, Tyson, plays keyboards for them, and
dope,
hang out. And yeah, they were great, man. Hadn't lost a beat. I mean, like, I think Roxy's the only original member now, but
yeah,
they still just slammed. I mean, it was really good.
Yeah, and Janet had, to her credit, had really nice things to say about Roxy, even though she's not playing with her anymore. She's doing something with her husband now. That's cool. Her husband's like a fantastic guitar player too. Oh, nice. That's awesome. So yeah, I toured with them back in 2001, I think it was. With Vixen? The Voices. Yeah, we did the Voices of Metal tour. Oh, nice. Metal with. Were you with Piercy? Yeah, it was Stephen. Oh, okay. Piercy. I think he was actually trying to tour it as Rat featuring Stephen Piercy, trying to, I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, I remember it was pretty interesting. But you know, Vince Neil was on that. So it was Vince, us, Slaughter, and Vixen. And nice. We did I don't know how long we were out, probably at least a month, probably more than that, probably like 6 weeks. But yeah, we did like the Buffalo Chip out there in Sturgis and a bunch of other great shows, you know, a bunch of outdoor stuff. And yeah, they were a lot of fun. We had a great hang, you know, that whole time. So, and that's how I met Brent, the guy I was talking about that plays with Slash now, Brent Fitz, killer drummer. He was playing with Vince Neil at the time, and we hung out and got to know each other back then. So yeah, it's a long
long sordid tale.
That's super cool. Like, do you have any good stories from when you played with Piercy? Because like Round and Round and like Out of the Cellar and all that stuff. Like that was like the soundtrack to my childhood. Like I still love Rat to this day.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, Piercy, he is that guy. He is a rock star. Like he's that guy.
Yeah.
It's so cool because like sometimes you'll expect one thing and he'll totally surprise. Like one time we were out on tour and he had a couple of wireless mics, we travel with, and for some reason they both went down and they were not working. And I expected fully the tantrum, like it's bullshit, and whatever. And he's like, I don't need that shit. And he grabbed a mic with a fucking cable and proceeded to absolutely show what he could do with that stuff. I mean, he was whipping that cable across the stage like a damn lion tamer, man. I mean, it was unreal, putting on a show. I've been touring with the guy for like literally years and never seen that he could even do that, because once you get a wireless mic in your hand, obviously all those things are out the window, but he had all these tricks, this entertainment stuff that, he didn't have a chance to, you'd never even know, but that stuff's all in his bag. It's all right there. It's really cool. Super cool to know that guy's that deep,
That's cool because you hear these stories about bands that like lost their laptops and can't play, or something.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah. He was stripped down, didn't care,
Right. Awesome. That's what it's all about. Like we had this conversation. We talk a lot about the backing tracks thing, because it's part of the game now. But this one band, I liked their take on it because they're like, yeah, we use backing tracks, but like if our equipment malfunctioned or whatever, we'd raw dog it, basically. I was like, I love that. Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. That's cool. Yeah, if you're just using it to enhance the show, then what's the big deal?
Totally.
I think the problem people seem to have with it is when people are up there faking it. Like if you're up there lip syncing to your own music, that's not what people are buying tickets for, right? If you're going to do that, you should tell them, because they think you're singing that, and that's sort of disingenuous. So I don't know. I don't think there's anything disingenuous about somebody going up there as a 4-piece and you hear the keyboards come in and it's like, okay, well, they don't have a keyboard player, but it sounds like the track. So you're enjoying the show. The entertainment quality is there. That's not I don't think anybody's going to pitch a fit about that, but no. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I wouldn't personally, because to me, that's just improving the show. Right.
Yeah. Well, and Ken from Fifth Angel, when we were talking to him about it, he's like, I went and saw Kiss, and that's like one of my favorite bands. And he's like, and I know a lot of this stuff was on tracks and whatever, and I didn't care because I was just happy to see Kiss and they sounded great. And so I guess if you're honest about it and your fans, it's kind of like a known thing. Totally.
Right. Yeah, it's no big deal, right? But yeah, if your show doesn't work without your tracks, wow, that's not live music, is it? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it is.
Well, and it's great. It's great to have like a way to like replicate the CD or be as close to the recording as possible. But that's not really what people go to live shows for. I mean, I don't anyway. I don't go to hear the CD, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, we don't use any tracks, and I prefer personally for myself the thrill of, okay, I'm about to fuck this up, but if I don't, it'll sound great. So it's that holding your own feet to the fire and being well rehearsed enough to get out there and just, know it's going to be tight, know it's going to be solid, and, that's not easy to do. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of rehearsal. You got to be on the same page with 3 other guys, 4 other guys, however many guys are in your band. So it's a tall order, man. So, but I respect people that can do that. So when you see somebody doing that, I was planning to go down and see Extreme is playing down in Orange County on Thursday.
Oh, damn.
Those guys, I don't know if they use tracks or not, but
I might have to try to go to that.
I've seen them before and they weren't, and it was just 4 guys up there crushing it. And it's like, wow, 4 guys can make that sound. That's impressive. And the same's true for a lot of bands, but I think that, using tracks is cool. I don't know, but when it goes south, boy, does it go south. I've seen when we were out with Vince, they had tracks, all the girls, all that stuff. And I don't know what happened one night. They got off by like a beat or something, and so all those huge giant harmonies, all backup vocals all come in, but not where they're supposed to. And you're just like,
yeah,
well, that's not a good look.
That's gotta suck.
Yeah, right. So I wouldn't want to look over my shoulder with that kind of stuff. That's another thing about not using tracks. It's like, you don't have to worry about that happening. If something happens, you just go with it, and keep going.
Yeah, that's the joy of live too, is like to see the fuck ups. I mean, there's a reason bands like Metallica fill stadiums.
Right. That's true. It's true. Yeah. You can get through it. It's amazing what you can do. I mean, the first festival we ever played with Kill Devil Hill was in Germany, in Leipzig, with Full Force. And we get out there and basically we start the first song, everything's cool, and I'm like, oh, I need to turn my guitar up a little bit. Well, my pedal board was right by the front of the stage. So I go to get back to the amp to turn up the volume on the amp. I get to about 2 feet from where I can reach it and I'm out of cable.
Oh no.
So I was like, uh-oh, now what do I do? So I'm screaming for somebody to come over and help me turn my amp up. Meanwhile, Vinny's pedal quits on him. It falls off the drum. So he's back there with no kick drum pedal and he's yelling at his drum tech, but the drum tech's a German dude. He doesn't know what he's yelling at him for. So he's yelling at him and the guy's like handing him a sandwich and he's like, not a sandwich, so it was just a total, mess on all levels. But it was great. At the end we started with almost nobody because nobody had heard of us there. And then by the time we were done with our set, we had probably 7,000 to 8,000 people in front of the stage. I mean, there was like 14,000 people at that show. I don't remember, but I think Machine Head might have headlined that night. They killed it. But yeah, we drew some people and that's the joy of it. You can have the worst day of your life, but people don't notice it unless you draw attention to it. So just keep going,
Totally.
Keep rocking.
We were watching footage of the Reformed Pantera the other day, and I'm like, I was noticing there's a part where Charlie kind of like flubs one of the transitions, and I was kind of picking on him a little bit, but then I'm like, by the same token, this guy's like, first of all, he's not in the band, like he's playing music that he's not typically playing. Second of all, it's like a brand new song that they just added to the set list. Third of all, like, who knows how long he's been playing at this point. There's so many factors and it still sounds great. So at the end of it, I was kind of like, I need to shut up because it's like,
right. He gets a pass, right? Yeah,
totally. Exactly. I mean, like you ain't going to see me sitting in that chair. So,
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's so awesome, man, watching that stuff. I mean, I'm so happy for Rex because I remember watching, I think, some video of the first show or two, and just the absolute sheer joy on his face. He's wanted that for a long time, whether he was admitting it or not. I know he did. And, it's so great to see him so happy and in his element where he belongs, so I'm super happy for him and can't wait to I'm hopefully going to see him on Friday, but
yeah, I'm trying to get to that show.
Yeah, definitely. Should be great. And Zach is just crushing those songs, man. It's so much fun to watch him play those songs.
They couldn't have picked better people to sit in those chairs or to be in those seats, like Zach, like Daryl would be honored to have Zach playing his parts. And I think
he'd be catching the nut off that so hard. I mean, literally, and Zach play his stuff, dude.
Totally.
Big popcorn, just living it up, man. Because truthfully, Zach is like, I don't know, the only guy you could get to do that.
Totally.
Wouldn't get stoned on stage, like literally people throwing bottles at him because, he's got that respect of not just being an incredible guitarist, but also having been friends with Dime, so
yeah,
that goes a long way. It's like that family thing that you just can't replace that, it's either there or it's not.
He's also, I think, one of the few people that can play those leads and rhythms.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, there aren't too many people that can pull that off. But
same with Charlie.
The cool thing with Zach, though, when about just the videos that I've seen, is that some of the stuff he's not trying to play it perfect note for note.
No,
he does his own version of it a little bit, which to me, that's even better, right? Because I'm a huge Zach Wild fan. So when I'm watching him play those songs and he's doing his own thing with them, it's like, wow, you can't get this off a Pantera record. This is something new. This is something cool and different. And it brings a added value to the whole thing, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's amazing.
To me, it's just cool as someone who grew up listening to both those bands. And there was maybe some tension a little bit in the 90s between them, to see like all the pictures of like Phil and James with their arms around each other, and, Lars and Robert Trujillo chilling with, and Kirk chilling with Rex and Charlie and all the unity in the metal scene, and I saw this video of Phil just like shouting out Metallica and talking about like what amazing people they are and stuff. I was like, that is so cool to see. Cause I remember back in the day, it feels like fucking Metallica sold out, you know?
Right, totally. Yeah, it's amazing, man. I just in my Facebook feed, I think, or Instagram, I just saw a picture came by of I don't know. Daryl looks like he's like 14 years old, but it's him and James Hetfield like in his bedroom holding up some speakers and playing guitar, playing some of Daryl's guitars, and Daryl's wearing a Metallica shirt. It's just super cool. And I'm like, wow, that's how long those guys go back, you know? That's some real history, you know, back before any of that stuff really blew up.
Yeah, I didn't know this until we just talked about this on a stream this weekend, that Daryl was offered a slot in Megadeth. And
Right.
I didn't know about that, but it was funny, the story, because the story was from like 2007 or something. It was an older story, but Dave Mustaine telling the story, he's like, yeah, I offered him the slot, and he's like, can I bring my brother along? And I was like, what is this, Rain Man or something? Like, but he was like, I just hired Nick Menza, so it just, you know, didn't
Right.
work out, and it's obviously for the better that it didn't, because we wouldn't have got Pantera.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a trippy story though, right? Because well, obviously those guys were like wired so tight, clearly, you
Yeah,
know. I think I read a quote that Phil said when he first got in there. He was like, I'd never played with musicians at that level before, you know, when he first joined the band. I mean, I don't know. There aren't that many musicians that are at that level, you know, growing
yeah.
up playing that tight together the way they did. So, yeah, it was something special for sure.
The brothers factor. It's like the Van Halen brothers, or you
Yeah.
know, the
Yeah,
Abbott
growing
brothers. There's
together. Yeah. Yeah, you
right.
can predict what somebody's going to do before they do it, you know? It's like kind of like the mind meld. It's like telepathy or something, you
They've
know?
been
It's
playing together
pretty
so
awesome.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So talk about Kill Devil Hill. Let's talk about a little bit more about Kill Devil Hill, man. Where did you get that name from?
Well, I mean, I was in an aviation class in the 90s, and they were talking about where the Wright brothers flew the first plane, which is technically Kitty Hawk, but it was in the sand dunes of Kill Devil Hill, which is outside of Kitty Hawk. And so it sounded cool. I was like, wow, that kind of rolls off the tongue. I'll write it down maybe one of these days, you know, just throw it in the hat and see if it comes up. And it did. And we put a bunch of names we were trying to decide between, and that one kind of was sticking. So I dug in and tried to figure out exactly how that name came to be. And it turns out it's got a kind of a long history. It's basically from the 1700s when pirates used to run rum up the coast. They'd run their like all the way up to Boston. They'd like sail and, you know, basically distribute rum. And, you know, that they had either pilfered or they were bringing up from Jamaica and all the Caribbean islands down there. But what would happen is if you got too close to some of these ports, like Norfolk, Virginia is basically the closest big city, you know, going up the coast from where Kill Devil Hill is. What they would do sometimes is they would put their, instead of sailing into, you know, Norfolk with all those barrels of rum and getting sailed up on by a British vessel that wants to either tax your rum or confiscate it all together or whatever, they'd run it off, the barrels off in skiffs and bury it in the sand dunes. And it was kind of an indescript little spot like Kill Devil Hills, where they could come back and get it later, you know, dig it up, take a few barrels here, a few barrels there, but then it doesn't all get taken or taxed all at one time or whatever. So kind of a stash spot. It was a booze stash, a rum
Oh, wow.
stash for the pirates, essentially. And they called rums Kill Devil because it was strong enough to kill the devil. That's how it got its name, which is kind of
Okay.
interesting because you think, oh man, that must have been some really strong rum. But even that has a story because basically the water on long voyages and ships of the days, you know, like those galleons and stuff, the water would go bad. Barrels of water would go bad over time. So what they would do is they'd put rum in the barrels to keep the water fresh for longer. You know what I mean? So if you're going to be at
Hmm.
sea for several months, that water might go bad and you need fresh water, obviously. So they'd, you know, preserve the water with the rum. And the devil that they were trying to kill was basically the water going bad.
The
So
bacteria.
yeah, exactly. So strong enough to kill the devil. So Kill Devil
That's
Hills,
cool.
you know, yeah, just pirates and rum and all that good stuff. So yeah, we try and use that a little bit, you know, here and there. We're kind of, you know, uh land pirates of a sort anyway, you know,
Hmm.
Dewey and I. And so, you know, we kind of there's a bunch of artwork and stuff for the new record that plays into the whole pirate vibe. And so yeah, it's pretty cool. In fact, a lot of the songs on the record were written kind of from a pirate perspective. You know, I mean, when we started writing for this stuff, I had that kind of in my mind, like, oh, okay, so we'll kind of go with this vibe and see if, if we can get some cool concepts that are kind of from a different angle, and see if how that works out. And a lot of stuff is kind of like that. But then, with some of the current stuff that's been going on, we kind of wrote a couple more songs that are written more about current events or things that are actually going on. Like we've got a song called Pharmaceutical Sunshine that's written about the opioid epidemic that's going on right now. I mean, it's really terrible. I mean, the statistics are staggering. You got like 130 people dying every day. It's like a 737 going down every day. And you don't even see it on the news. Nobody talks about it. It's like this, it's all swept under the rug. And it's just, man, it's heartbreaking when you see people going through what they have to go through with this stuff. I mean, it's amazing to me that it doesn't get more attention, because these people, these families that are going through this need that attention. They need that support. And, it's just not there. So I don't know. That song is basically about, trying to shine a light on that so that people don't, step into that hole. And because it's easy to do, literally I've had people in my family that have had issues with it. So, it's a problem. And so that song, hopefully with any luck will shine a little light on that for people.
That's something relatable, man. Both Eric and I, my cousin who started BPM with me, our fathers were both, Eric's father passed away a few years ago, and he had issues to the point, man, where he was hurting himself to get pills.
Ooh,
Like it was that bad. And
terrible.
man, the other side of that too, to your point, I worked in the marketing world for a while, like advertising sales. And I think a large reason that you don't hear about this in the press is because of that, because the companies that sell these drugs largely own the media through advertising subsidies. Like the money that they spend on advertising subsidizes the news.
Yeah, it's absolutely true, dude. And we live in one of the two countries where you can advertise drugs direct to consumer. I mean, it's New Zealand and us. Everywhere else, that's illegal. So,
holy shit.
Yeah.
I had this like surreal moment this morning. I was at my gym, or no, it wasn't this morning. It was last night at the store. I was at the store, and the loudspeaker at the store, I'm like pushing my cart through the store, like in a daze. And the loudspeaker is trying to sell a vaccine for some weird, it's like, get this vaccine, like Prevnestidar or whatever, like on the loudspeaker so yeah.
That's insane, right? I mean, like, what is this strange world we live in, man?
It was this weird thing where I'm like, holy shit. It's like, I feel like I'm like in this like weird, like, it's like idiocracy or something where they're like, get your vaccination, like these, it's so weird.
But dude, the profit margin is so high. I mean, like literally Xanax, the profit margin is like 500,000% on a Xanax pill.
Oh my God.
And they spend like $20 on advertising for every dollar they spend on research and development. So, they know they can sell this stuff. They know people will buy it. And I mean, I don't know, man, it's ethically, morally, I just don't know, like if it's the right road. I mean, like it's really it's got to be tempered somehow, right? There's got to be some way to kind of throttle it back, or at least, make people aware of what they're getting themselves into, because that's the real danger. Is people don't know. They think, okay, well, a doctor prescribed it, so it must be good. It's medicine, right? But it's not. Yeah. It's heroin. You know what I mean? That's terrible.
What people don't understand too, and I'm as someone who worked in marketing, I'm always ultra skeptical of everything I see. I'm like, okay, what's this fucker trying to sell me? Right. And I don't think a lot of people think like that, or do they realize how captured these industries are by like, the pharmaceutical companies? And that's not to say that pharmaceutical companies are all bad. They do a lot of stuff that's great, that helps society. But to your point, it needs to be tempered.
Right. Exactly. I mean, there's got to be a way to, avoid some of these heartbreaking stories, where people have loved ones that have passed away, that have basically driven their lives off a cliff over this stuff. And it's so tough to watch it in real time, because there's nothing you can do. These people are convinced that that's the only way for them. And it's, even the success stories are long and arduous. And it's just, I don't know, man, heartbreaking is the only word I can think of, but it really does, break your heart.
I just thought of this girl I knew from high school who killed herself a couple weeks ago, and she shot herself. And the reports from my friends were that Ambien was involved. That
Wow.
she got drinking again, and she was taking Ambien, and they think she just didn't know what she was doing, and she went home. She was a gun person, went home, and I'm just like, that is so weird, because she wasn't the type of person I would ever consider to do that. So I
Right.
mean, but Ambien does crazy shit. There's all kind of, like, that's another example of
Yeah, those ads are so weird, right? So, you're watching like a family in the park playing with their dog in slow motion, throwing a frisbee, and the announcer is telling you it may cause death or
yeah.
severe abdominal pain, or bleeding. It may cause, stroke or like all this stuff that's going to kill you. And with everybody smiling and they're having a picnic, it's so weird.
It's so great. I used to, full disclosure, when I used to DJ, my DJ name was DJ Side Effects. And I used to specifically pull clips from those pharmaceutical commercials that would be like the uncontrollable urge to move, like this song, this track gives it, but it would be like from a RLS commercial. And some of the things are so crazy. They're like, if you get the sudden urge to gamble or like suicidal thoughts, talk to your doctor. It's like, what the this diet pill
About
makes me
what a
want to
horse
kill
is going to come in there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like the
it's
side
terrible,
effects are
man.
worse than the problem you had.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, that's how that works. It's sort of like a cascading effect where, okay, now you've got these side effects. We've got something that will fix those side effects. Now,
Right.
what that is, has its own side effects, but we've got something for that too. So you wind up on like 16 different medications chasing your tail.
Yeah.
And basically, it's a downward spiral because all that stuff just eats away at your immune system, eats away at your body because it's toxic. At the end of the day, that stuff's not natural. It's not supposed to be in your body. But
No.
the more you are taking that stuff, the more you're just tightening that spiral. And people, I don't know. I know people personally that are just not really aware, that that's happening.
Yeah, they're not
And
skeptical.
it's uncomfortable to tell people that sort of a thing. So it makes you've really got to care and you've got to be ready for them to yell at you
Yep.
and you something. It can be a really uncomfortable situation. It usually is. But if you care about people, you got to do it. And that's the thing, So, hopefully we can find a way out of this stuff.
Well, and people's general instinct is to trust the experts. They're
Right.
your assumption is like, hey, these experts aren't going to tell me to do something that wouldn't be helpful. But by the same token, a lot of these experts are getting kickbacks from
Right.
the industry, or so.
Yep, that's true. Definitely, man. They've got the money. It's like literally a $1.4 trillion industry. I
Yeah.
mean, that's an insane amount of money. It's
You can buy
unbelievable when you think about
politicians, you can buy
it. Yes,
media.
exactly. And dude, it's like it's like the fast track. So all the guys at the FDA, all of them wind up over at Pfizer or at a
Yep.
pharmaceutical company with the golden parachute retirement job. Once they're out of the FDA, they know for a consultancy that's going to pay them so well they'll never have to work a day of their life and their kids are all going to go to school and everything's going to be fine. Completely with that. You can't, because all those guys at the FDA, of course, they're going to rubber stamp whatever they got to, because
Sure.
they know they don't want to screw up their golden parachute. So,
Right.
I don't know, man. It's all messed up. It's messed
Yep.
up from the ground up,
Well, it's heartening to know that people like yourself see it, because I see it, and I hope, I'm sure that a lot of people that watch our channel see it and are skeptical. We this past weekend we had this band October Noir on, and it was funny because we kind of talked about the band and stuff, and then near the end the guys stayed on and we started talking about some of our like news items and stuff, and we got into like some political talk a little bit, and it was funny because that stream has like more views than I think some of our live streams previously, and there's a bunch of comments, and a lot of them are the fans of the band, but they're like, this stream got really good near the end because you guys started actually talking about like interesting things.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, because it's terribly, I don't know, kind of banal to be like, oh yeah, we got a single coming out. Oh yeah, we got a record coming out. I mean, it's what you
Mhm.
do, and you have to promote it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you always hope there's some interesting tidbit that makes it a little bit more interesting to people in general, So
Right. Well,
yeah,
and these things too, I've gotten to the point where when we started doing this, I did the interviews where I'm like, I'm going to write down all my questions and stuff. And then we started doing this live stream thing. And that's one of the reasons I try to schedule it an hour early and have the band come in halfway, is because it's like we're already warmed up. And then it's more like a conversational thing where it's like there have been so many bands I've talked to in the last month and a half that I wouldn't have paid a lick of attention to had I not sat down and talked with them and got to know them as people and gone like, wow, this dude's really cool. This dude's CJ from Drowning Pool, probably the best example. Like I haven't paid attention to Drowning Pool in years, but CJ was the coolest dude. And we just chatted for like an hour, and it made me like go, wow, I really want to dive into their catalog and listen to all their old stuff. And it's great. They got great shit.
That's a great band for sure. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
only saw them one time opening for Damage Plan years ago. They were amazing.
A Dallas band too, very influenced by Pantera, of course.
Yeah, totally. Killer.
So are there any specific themes other than what we just talked about on the new album that are you'd find interesting or you'd want to call out or anything like that?
We got a song called "You Can't Kill Me, California." It's basically about what you think, I mean, how everything's gotten so expensive and how, it's, I don't know, California tax can really take its toll on people. I mean, in a lot of ways, but it's, well, we're neighbors. So,
Right.
Seeing it kind of starting to devolve or increasing the speed of it devolving. So it's interesting. There's a lot of stuff that's, it's kind of political. It's we're not trying to pick sides politically because at the end of the day, it's not about red or blue. I mean, it should be about red, white, and blue. I mean, where's the unity? We're all Americans here. Let's just all come together and figure all this stuff out because there are problems that affect everybody. It's not problems that only affect one side or the other. It affects everybody when you live here. Yep. So that song's about, just trying to rise above some of the problems that are, in our way living in California, because it's funny because I go to other states and, travel or whatever. And it's like, oh, so that's what gas should cost, or, oh, so that's what, that's what it's like to have somebody hold the door open for you, or what, like there's things that are, sometimes you get people that are, I don't know. It's just, it's hard to explain, I guess, unless you're here, but it's funny because it's gotten enough press that I've had friends from Nebraska say, oh yeah, I love that song. You must hate it there. I'm like, how would you know? You've never been here, but they must be hearing it from somewhere, some channel they're listening to or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that stuff, it's around you every day. So sometimes it's kind of hard to ignore, and it's easy to write about something that's got, a daily kind of input into your life.
Yeah. You got to be inspired by what you know. You got to write about what you know. I think too, I like on the red and blue thing. It's like, I had this conversation. I have brothers that live in Texas and I'm originally from Utah. So, but I've been in LA since 99. So I've been here most of my life, but I see like the homeless problem is a great example where I'm like, wow, you go downtown and it's like, there's tents everywhere. There's people, and it's gotten worse. I worked in Hollywood a couple of years ago and there were tent cities down there, and it's, before Biden, before Trump even. And I talked to some people online like, oh, California has the highest homeless population in the world. And I'm like, well, we have the most people in the country. We're the warmest.
Right.
But this problem isn't a California problem. It's a national problem. It's a red and blue state problem because they have it in Austin, Texas. They have it in, New York and Florida. I was just talking to these cats from Florida the other day. They're like, yeah, we got it here too. And to your point, it's like, we need to stop looking at each other as like, oh, you're on the blue team and you're bad, or you're on the red team and you're bad. And
right. I think the only way you solve a lot of these problems is with unity, people working together, reaching across the aisle, so to speak, or whatever, because at the end of the day, man, we're all, experiencing the same human condition. You know what I mean? We're all together. We're a team, it's kind of like, it's funny.
Common.
Yeah, exactly. On a much smaller scale, sometimes when I read like, Blabbermouth or something where some guy in a band is burning down another guy in a band. And I'm kind of like, don't you guys realize we're all on the same team? And it's not really that big of a team, like rock musicians nowadays. I mean, we're it's a much smaller team than it used to be. And it's like, come on, man, like it's a team play. Let's stick together, and support each other, because otherwise, how many of us are going to be left, And it's the same on a much bigger scale with society, because, everybody's basically wants the same thing. Everybody wants to be successful. They want to be comfortable. They want to have a roof over their head and, money in the bank. And you know what I mean? Like, everybody wants the same thing, but, fighting over it doesn't get us there faster. In fact, it takes longer if you're fighting to get where you want to be. So why not just cooperate? Why does it matter whether you like this guy for politics or I like that guy? It doesn't matter. Just, or there's so many divisive factors now. It's everything, right? It's your sexuality, your skin color, everything else, it's like, doesn't matter. We're all human beings. It does not matter. Just be cool with everybody else. At the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing for the same reason. So there's no reason to be constantly fighting over stuff,
Well, and the new thing, I'm going to rant a little bit because I was reading Blabbermouth before I jumped on here, and it seems like there's this trend of people are like, well, if you're a Republican Trump supporter, then you're a fascist and you're a Nazi, and there's no way I'm ever going to talk to you or acknowledge who you have any right to anything. And it's like the new bigotry. It's like, it's okay to be a bigot because you just assume that people who like Trump are racist. And it's like, I know people who are Black and Asian and Hispanic that voted for Trump. Like, are they racist? So It's kind of like there's this new mentality of like, it's like the liberal people in my life have become as bad or worse than the Trump people were, or the people that were right wing, that were anti-gay and all that stuff. And I think a lot of the people that were like the right wing people that were anti-gay or like against gay marriage or whatever have come around a lot to that. But it's still this like now if I feel like all my liberal friends are the ones like, oh, you're a Nazi, so I'm just not going to talk to you, and you don't matter, your opinion doesn't matter, and you're a fascist. And then on the other side, you got, the right-wing guys like going, all these liberal commies and their trans rights crap. And it's like, yo, none of that stuff even matters. Like, let's talk about living wages and reining in the drug companies and like all this kind of stuff.
Exactly. It's so true, man. And at the end of the day, it's the intolerance that's the problem, because, everybody should just live. Why can't we just live and let live? If you're not hurting me, then do whatever you want, and totally. I won't do anything to hurt you, and I want to do whatever I want. That's what freedom's all about. That's what the Constitution's all about, and so
that
I don't know.
Is the key.
Yeah, exactly. Live and let live. It's really pretty simple.
If what you're doing doesn't bother me, like I see this stuff with like the drag queen stuff. Like I'm not going to get us canceled or anything, I promise. But it's like, to me, it's like, okay, to me, that's a personal issue. If parents want to take their kids to drag shows, God bless them. Let them do it. I think kids are safer at drag shows than they are at churches, to be honest.
Yeah, but you might be right. I don't know. But dude, it's a choice.
It's the same thing with the Christian people and telling me what I can and can't listen to, or what I can and can't say or watch. And it's like, let people, let people say what they want. If people are Nazis or racist, let them expose themselves,
right.
As long as they're not,
sorry, dude.
Threatening to hurt people. Anyways.
It's totally ridiculous, man. It's totally ridiculous. But yeah, I don't understand why people can't have freedom. It's almost as if we don't trust you with your own freedom. It's like, wait a minute. I just want to make my own decisions, and I'm not going to hurt anybody. And I just, I'm going to be over here living my life, enjoying my time, and what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that, so.
No. And when I was a kid, the people who are trying to censor music, the PMRC people, the people trying to censor art were the bad guys. And now nothing about me has changed, but the other side of the political spectrum are the ones trying to censor everyone. It's like it's crazy. I'm like, yo, this is the same thing.
It's totally flipped, right?
Yeah.
180 degrees. Yeah, totally straight. But the thing is, man, for me, this is communication. So like you were saying earlier, when they shut you down and they say, well, what you say doesn't matter, and I'm not going to talk to you anymore, and, I'm going to shut you out, that basically destroys any hope of finding that unity, that space between, that common ground that we all have. We all have some common ground. So the smart play, instead of shutting people down, it seems, is to find that common ground with somebody and agree on something. Start with something you can agree on, because there's things you don't agree on. Okay, that's fine, but it's okay to agree to disagree. Nowadays, it seems like people think that because you disagree, it's like, oh, I've got to either shut you out or resort to violence or something like that. It's like, no, if you're offended, that's fine. If you don't like what I think, that's fine. I may not like what you think, but I still respect you. I'll still hold the door open for you. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like I have no issue with people deciding they like all the things that I don't like. It's
sure.
fine. It doesn't matter. But that's them exercising their constitutional rights. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. I think this country's a beautiful place. And I really, I believe in what the founders, put together, the freedoms that
Me
we're
too.
supposed to be enjoying. So, hopefully we can continue to enjoy those for a good long time. And hopefully it's not lost on people that, maybe aren't being taught that in schools, or maybe, have to go digging on the internet for it now where, like when I grew up, we had to do the Pledge of Allegiance and they taught all that stuff a lot more than I know they do now through my, people that I know, younger folks that I know. But yeah, I mean, if it's something that, you can't agree on, find something you can agree on, because like I
Totally.
said, we've got so much in common. Everybody's got something in common, even if you can't speak the same language, you've got stuff in common. So it's just a matter of finding, and nowadays you can just translate it with your phone and, have a friend in any country you want. I mean, it's bizarre how technology can be used to bridge gaps rather than to divide people.
Yeah. Well, and we have a media culture that thrives on fear and division and uses it to drive views and clicks and all that kind of stuff too. So
Sure.
I don't think that helps anything.
Divide and conquer, man. Old as a hill. Yep.
Yeah,
Sun
man.
Tzu.
Well, and I'm not going to call this person out either, the artist that I'm talking about, but one of the things they said that I thought was so stupid in their rant was, if you're one of these people who wears a red hat, like I don't want you at my concert. I don't want anything to do with you. And it just instantly just like drawing a line in the sand where like now you've got half the country that's not going to listen to anything you have to say because you
Right.
did that. And it's like, that's stupid. Like, because why?
Yeah, exactly. Why can't you use your music and all of that to bring people
Right.
together? I mean,
You've
that would be
got a platform.
glorious. Yeah.
Exactly. You've got a platform to talk to these people. You can bring them around to your point of view if you finesse it a little bit and don't act like a cunt.
Totally. It's a
Anyway,
truth, I mean, you got a giant soapbox like that. Why not use it for something good?
right.
Because, humanity could use it right now is the truth.
Yeah. And everybody wants to dunk on each other. I think that's another side, effect of social media where it's like everyone wants to be like, see, I'm smarter than you. Cha-ching. Like,
Right. Yeah. But it's not about that, because at the end
no.
of the day, you're just helping the people who are dividing us to get further down their path. Dunking on somebody just divides you further, because when you make someone feel bad by you feeling good, that doesn't bridge any gap. That doesn't, bring anybody any closer to agreeing about anything, so I don't know. I don't know. You're right though. I see it all the time. People trying to, one-upsmanship everywhere. And that's kind of sad. At the end of the day, it's not that important. None of that stuff is all that important. And the media spins it up and, yeah, it's a shame, but people believe what they're told. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I read some of the stuff I read or watch some of the stuff I watch, because now it's pervasive. It's not even just on the news. It's in
Yeah.
movies. It's in everything, because, like the same corporations own everything now. So basically it's whatever agenda they want to spread. And, I'm like, that's not right. I know that's not right, but people are watching this. And a lot of people are watching this and they probably don't know that that's not right. They have no way to discern whether what they're being told is true or not. I can tell
Man.
because I've still got a logical bone left, but some people don't, and people believe what they're told. So when you've got all these mass media channels projecting and, broadcasting this particular narrative, it is hard to overcome. It really is. People believe it. So
People don't think critically about anything. And just on that note too, you're here in LA. I had 2 or 3 people text me and go, hey, I hope you're going to be okay, man. I heard there's a hurricane coming to LA and stuff. And I'm just like, dude, it's going to be a rainstorm and then it's going to be fine. Like, and that's exactly what happened. It rained hard for a day or two. And then, but it's like, that's what a water cooler country we live in, where it's just like, someone says some shit and it gets out and it's like snowballs. Everyone's like, oh my God, everyone in California is going to die.
yeah, it's true. It's true. Total alarmist, man. But yeah, fear peddling, man. They do it. It's definitely, everybody, when you're scared, you're a lot easier to control, like
Yep.
easily led, so yeah, that's part of it. But yeah, I'm glad that thing didn't kind of
It didn't
materialize.
wreck us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you
exactly.
hit the earthquake too? There was an
I
earthquake.
did. Knocked me out of bed. I was like, oh wow, all right.
It was so surreal because I was sitting right here because I have my computer here and I was working on something and I felt like I was in a dream. Like the room was just like, is this gonna stop? Is this one of those dream sequences? Or
I
anyway,
was like laying on the edge of the bed and it started shaking and I just about rolled off on the floor.
that was one of the like heaviest earthquakes we've had in a while too.
Yeah. It was like what 5.5 or something out in
Yeah.
Ohio or somewhere.
I
That's
usually
not
don't
that far
even
from here though, because
nah,
we're west in the valley.
I usually don't feel them, but I'm just like whoosh. Anyway, what do you guys what's your guys live schedule like? Are you gonna be playing in LA anytime soon?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a show coming up at the Whiskey on the 21st, Thursday the 21st. And then we're playing
September?
Vamped, yeah, of September. And playing Vamped in Vegas on the 22nd, that Friday. And then coming back to do a show in the OC at a place called Stages. I haven't played there yet, but I hear it's really cool.
Okay.
It's Santa Ana. So those will be CD release shows. The CD actually comes out. Well, I say CD, but the record comes out. It's actually going to be on vinyl too. We're working on a vinyl release, so
Awesome.
that we'll have pre-orders ready for that. We got a bunch of new merch. It's all going to be available too. But yeah, those 3 shows will be CD release party shows. So I think we're going to be handing out CDs. So if anybody wants to come down and catch a free CD off of it, I think we're going to be having those available as well. Band will be there. We can sign them for you. We can do, we'll have a bunch of, like I said, new merchandise and stuff like that, pre-orders for vinyl. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to. We are what is it? The premiere of Pharmaceutical Sunshine video. I think is the week before. I want to say the 13th of September. So, and
Awesome.
it's actually a really cool video. We went out to a dry lake bed with a bunch of Harleys and rode around in a dry lake bed and had a drone guy out there filming it. And
Dope.
it was pretty fun. We had a good time. I mean, it was a bit of a struggle getting there and making it all happen, but it was worth it at the end of the day. So yeah, that video is pretty killer. So I'm looking forward to everybody checking that out. And of course, that tune, it's got kind of a powerful message that I hope kind of, connects with people.
Yeah, it was cool to have that conversation around that because I think that's one of those things that's like almost a third rail right now, but I think a lot of people pick up on it and relate to what we were talking about.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Yeah, we're hoping to get out and do a little bit of touring next year though, too. So I don't know exactly, like I said, about Johnny's schedule, we're working with that and doing what we got to do with that. But we definitely want to get out and tour, and it's been a long time. Honestly, it's been way too long. And Dewey and I are chomping at the bit to get out there and play. So, and Matt, he's 100% on board and just bought an RV. So yeah, we're gonna take that thing out. I think.
Yeah, man, do it.
Should be fun. Yeah, it should be fun. I just want to get out there and play, man. At the end of the day, it's been so long because with social media, you talk to like fans can kind of have access to you in a way that they never could before, which is well, it can be good and bad, but mostly it's good. And people that have been in contact with me have been super cool, and it's great to have that connection with fans. The only thing that's missing is being able to go to their town and play. Because that's when they can come out to the show, we can hang out and do a shot and have fun and get to know each other. And then, kind of keep that ball rolling, because that's what we used to do. And it was a lot of fun. That was where the real connection was.
Totally.
And now I just feel like we've lost that, especially. And so getting out there and actually, getting to see the fans, meet the people and be with them in the same room, you know what I mean? And party and have a good time. That's what it's about. And I miss that. And I can't wait till we can get back out and do it some more.
COVID the lockdown stuff totally heightened everyone's senses to that too. I feel like there's like just a tidal wave of shows. I mean, a lot of them are stuff that was postponed, but still it's like people just are chomping at the bit to get out. I've been sincerely enjoying the last year of concerts.
No doubt. Right. It's so great to be able to go see a show again.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm definitely gonna come and check you guys out when you hit the Whiskey. I've got Johnny coming on next week, I think, for like a Typo Negative 30th anniversary thing for Bloody Kisses with Kenny.
Awesome.
So that should be fun too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
But we'll
Johnny's good people.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk a little bit of Kill Devil Hill as well, because I'm not, we're not just going to talk about Typo. We'll talk about the stuff those guys are doing now too. But
Killer. Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to people hearing what we were able to put together. Chris Collier, the guy that produced the record, did an amazing job. I think it's sonically it's our best sounding record.
where'd you guys
And
record at?
he
Down here?
we recorded at Clear Lake Studios over in Burbank.
Okay.
But yeah, we recorded it wasn't all recorded there. The drums basically were recorded there, and then the bass Matt did at his place. I did the guitars at my place, and then
Yeah.
Chris, the producer, has a place in Vegas that we went out. Dewey and I flew out and did the vocals over there. So, but yeah, we put it all together over a long period of time. Actually, it took a long time to put it together because of schedules and issues that I don't know. It's the reality of living in this world where everybody's doing a lot of different projects at the same time. Sometimes it kind of takes a while to get stuff done, but we kind of took the attitude of quality, not quantity. So if we had to wait a little bit longer, it was worth it as long as it came out the way we wanted, and we're really proud of how it came out. So I can't wait to share it with the fans next month for sure.
Awesome. What's the official release date again?
It's September 20th. I think we're going to have an iTunes and Apple Music pre-release on the 18th, I believe.
Okay.
But it's going to be released worldwide September 20th. It's called Seas of Oblivion.
I have some files. I have admittedly not gotten as deep into them as I would like to, so I didn't want to go too deep into like my personal opinions about the songs yet, because I haven't really listened to them as much as I like to before I do that. But I'm gonna give it a thorough listening. I'm stoked to listen to it. She sent it to me the other day, and one of our other team members is writing a review. So
killer.
Awesome. Pretty soon.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah, Mark. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time today, man. This was a great conversation. We just killed an hour just kind of bullshitting. So
nice. I love it, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Please come by again too. When you guys are promoting something else, we got a new single, you head out on tour, anything, man.
Okay.
We'd love to have it. So
hell, you're on.
And I'll see you at the whiskey next month, hopefully.
All right. Looking forward to it already.
All right, man. Take care of yourself. Appreciate you.
You too. See you, brother.
All right, guys. I think initially the way I like to do these, I run some stories out at the front. I have some stories that I could have done, but the reality is me and Mark talked about a lot of the stuff that I would have covered anyway. And tomorrow we have this band called Cold Words coming in, and they are, from what I've read about them, it's the former drummer of Saliva and his son's band. So they got an interesting sound. It's maybe not on the same heaviness level as a Kill Devil Hill. It's a little more Linkin Park type music, but that's who we got coming in tomorrow. So if you tuned in live, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing that. And take good care of yourself out there in wherever you're at, and we will see you soon, or we'll see you in the comments.